Most of it was, I wanted to go somewhere new when I got out of high school. I knew people in Utah and wound up in Salt Lake shortly after high school. Stayed there for a little while. I didn't particularly enjoy Utah. There was this little weekly in Lakeview. And I thought, well, I'll take it easy and work at a little weekly in Lakeview. I never worked so hard in my life. I sent a letter to a person who I knew who had worked for Wyden and said I'd like to be considered for a job. And then months went by. And I figured, well, it's not going to happen. I didn't realize that, how you get a staff together and how you have to do things. I just sent a letter and didn't hear anything back. And so Mike Dugan was running for Congress, needed a press secretary. And so I took that job. My second day on the job, I got called for an interview with the Wyden people. What I didn't know is that they took their time to hire a state director, and the state director then was doing that. And the state director was actually hired in early May, and he got right to it. And he calls me and says, "You've got a really interesting resume, newspaper background, appraisal stuff." He said, "We'd like you to come in." Went up to LeGrand and had no place to work out of. And the college up there, Eastern Oregon, had a spare room I could work out of temporarily. And in fact, until I found a space to let me use an empty dorm room. The reason why this election was done by mail was because it was a special election. And so it was the first one, and it was a big deal.
It was the forerunner of vote by mail in Oregon.
It was the forerunner, and at a time when it was a big issue. Remember, at one point, Republicans favored it, and Governor Kitzhaber vetoed it, and then after Ron won the special election, the positions flipped. Funny how those things happen. But that's how it was, and we learned early on that when you have vote by mail, you essentially have 2 election days, and that field work becomes extremely important. The Wyden campaign and the Democrats were able to work through that easier than the other side. In fact, there was a strong feeling, and I think there were some polls out, was that State Senator Smith had a lead in the polls about the time the ballots went out. But it was hard, good field work that changed that. It's fun. It's chaotic. It's it's been worthwhile. For one thing, he's a superb guy to work for. This guy is enormously good at what he does. And he is enormously good at handling people's questions and being helpful. He always finds a way to connect that they don't count on. They think things are so adversarial that they're going to have something and they'll get them. And he's able to disarm them and sometimes make friends. And there's other times when we've been working together on stuff, or when we deal with people who have just up against it, very, very frustrated, either dealing with government or some other thing in their life, and we're able to find a solution for them. And it's one they didn't expect. Sometimes it's one I didn't expect, and it's an enormous amount of fun. We all know it's our job to find common ground and find ways to work stuff out. It is his theme, but it is also ours. When people need help with something, they aren't calling to hear a partisan pitch. And in fact, most of the stuff, 99% of the stuff I do has no partisan edge to it. What I am concerned about, and I think it's probably similar to what you're speaking of, is that people are more and more going into their little groups and not getting out of them. That is one reason why I am so glad that I have been working for the senator out here and farther east. is that I hear things that I might not hear if I was working in Portland. And it helps me when it's time for me to brief the senator, who's acutely aware of those divisions, by the way. And it helps me as I approach my job. It means that I have to work with oftentimes people who we don't share the same political philosophy, which means that we look for what we do agree on instead of what we might disagree on. And I would say there are some very conservative county commissioners, and at one point I've covered every single county east of the mountains. There are some very conservative county commissioners with whom I have a superb relationship because we work on what we agree on and not on what we disagree on. The thing I'm the most proud of is also the thing I'm most disappointed in, and that was efforts to bring a legislation on Klamath Basin water agreements into law. We came so close. Oh, I'm going to miss all of it. Every bit of it. I can be sometimes a bit of a sentimental sort of person, and I've been out here a long time, and I really enjoy it. And I will miss people. I will miss the fact that during the summer there's no bugs. I will miss the open spaces that I am so aren't like New England. You see for miles. I will miss going to Burns and talking to people there. I will miss all of it, but I'm also looking forward to retirement and being with my family.